You know those moments that seem totally ordinary until they're not? Well, this is one of those stories, and trust me, by the end of this, you're gonna look at a single dollar bill completely differently. It was a cold Tuesday evening in Los Angeles, 1967. Dean Martin had just wrapped up a recording session at Capitol Records. He was wearing his usual after-work outfit, nothing fancy, just a simple navy sweater, regular khaki pants, and brown leather shoes that had seen better days. His hair was a bit messy from running his hands through it during the session. He looked like any other tired guy heading home after a long day, except he wasn't just any guy. He was Dean Martin, one of the biggest stars in America. Dean stepped out onto Vine Street, pulling his jacket collar up against the wind. The street was buzzing with the usual evening crowd, people rushing to catch buses, couples heading to dinner, cars honking in that classic LA symphony of chaos. He lit a cigarette and started walking toward his car, which was parked about 2 blocks away. That's when he saw him. An older man, probably in his 60s, sitting on the cold pavement with his back against a brick wall. His clothes were worn and dirty, layers upon layers that probably served as his only blanket at night. His face was weathered, covered in a grey beard that hadn't seen a trim in months. But it was his eyes that caught Dean's attention. They weren't desperate or pleading. They were just tired. Tired in a way that comes from years of fighting battles nobody else can see. Most people walked right past him. Some looked away quickly, like homelessness might be contagious. Others pretended to be deeply interested in their watches or the buildings across the street. You know how it goes. We've all done it. But something made Dean stop. Maybe it was the way the man sat with a certain dignity despite everything. Or maybe Dean was just having one of those days where you actually see people instead of just looking past them. The homeless man looked up as Dean's shadow fell across him. Their eyes met, and here's where it gets interesting. The man didn't immediately ask for money. He didn't launch into a story or explanation. He just said, in a voice that was surprisingly steady, "Sir, I hate to bother you, but could you spare $1? Just $1. That's all I'm asking. A $1. Not 5, not 10, not whatever you can spare, just one specific dollar." Dean stood there for a moment, and you could see the wheels turning in his head. He reached into his pocket, and everyone who was watching probably expected him to pull out $1, maybe a 5 if the guy was lucky, hand it over, and be on his way. That's what normal people do, right? A quick transaction that makes us feel better about ourselves as we walk away. But Dean Martin wasn't about to do what everyone expected. What happened next is the kind of thing that separates a guy who's just famous from a guy who's actually got depth. Are you ready for this? Because I'm telling you, his response wasn't just unexpected. It was the kind of thing that makes you rethink everything. Dean didn't pull out his wallet. Instead, he did something that made the few people watching completely stop in their tracks. He sat down. Right there on the cold, dirty sidewalk, next to this homeless man, his nice pants on the same ground where countless people had walked, spit, and God knows what else. He sat down like they were 2 old friends meeting at a park bench. "What's your name?" Dean asked, pulling out his pack of cigarettes and offering one to the man. The homeless man looked confused, maybe even a little suspicious. "Jimmy," he said slowly, taking the cigarette with shaking hands. "Jimmy Patterson. Jimmy Patterson." Dean repeated, lighting Jimmy's cigarette first, then his own. "That's a good, solid name. I'm Dean." Now Jimmy definitely knew who Dean Martin was. You'd have to be living under a rock bigger than the Hollywood sign not to recognize that face in 1967. But he played it cool, just nodded like Dean had said his name was Bob or Joe. "Nice to meet you, Dean." They sat there smoking for a minute, neither one saying anything. Cars kept passing, people kept walking, the world kept spinning. But in that little bubble on Vine Street, time felt different. Slower maybe, more real. Then Dean asked the question that changed everything. "Jimmy, why exactly $1? Why not 2 or 50 cents? What's the $1 for?" And this is where the story takes a turn that nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming. Jimmy looked at his cigarette, took a long drag, and exhaled slowly. "There's a payphone 2 blocks from here," he said quietly. "A call costs a dime. I need to make a call to Colorado, long distance. The operator told me it would cost 97 cents for 3 minutes. He paused, and his voice got even softer. "Today's my daughter's birthday. She's turning 32. I haven't spoken to her in almost 8 years. Dean didn't say anything. He just listened. And isn't that the rarest thing in the world? Someone who actually listens instead of just waiting for their turn to talk. "I made some mistakes," Jimmy continued, his words coming faster now, like water finally breaking through a dam. "I drank too much, lost my job, lost my family. My wife passed away 5 years ago, and I never got to say I was sorry. But my daughter, Sarah, she's still out there. She's got 2 kids now, my grandkids, and I've never even met them. Never even heard their voices. He wiped his eyes with the back of his dirty hand, leaving a smudge of grime across his cheek. I've been collecting coins for 3 weeks. Pennies, nickels, dimes, whatever people drop into my cup. I counted it all last night. I have 83 cents. I just need 17 more cents to make that call. But I'm asking for $1 because... He laughed, but it was the saddest laugh you ever heard. Because nobody gives exact change, do they? And maybe the extra change will get me a cup of coffee after. Something hot to drink while I figure out what to say to her. The street noise seemed to fade away completely. A bus hissed to a stop somewhere nearby. A woman laughed at something her companion said. Life continued all around them, completely unaware that something profound was happening on that sidewalk. Dean took another drag of his cigarette and stared straight ahead at the traffic. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Softer. What are you gonna say to her, Jimmy? If she picks up. I don't know, Jimmy admitted. I've practiced it 1,000 times in my head. Happy birthday, Sarah, it's your dad. But that sounds stupid, doesn't it? Like, of course she knows it's her dad. She'll recognize my voice even after all these years. Or maybe she won't. Maybe I've been gone so long I'm just a stranger now. You won't know until you try, Dean said simply. That's the truth, Jimmy agreed. But trying is the hardest part, isn't it? What if she hangs up? What if she doesn't want to hear from me? What if I've hurt her so badly that my voice just brings back all that pain? He looked at Dean with those tired eyes. Is it selfish to call her just because I need to hear her voice, even if it hurts her to hear mine? Now that's a question that hits different, doesn't it? How many of us have wanted to reach out to someone we've hurt, but stopped because we convinced ourselves it was for their sake? When really, maybe we were just scared. Dean crushed out his cigarette on the sidewalk. Then he did something that absolutely nobody expected. He stood up, brushed off his pants, and reached into his pocket. But he didn't pull out $1. He pulled out his entire wallet. Jimmy started to protest, probably thinking Dean was about to throw a 20 at him and walk away with a clear conscience. But Dean held up his hand. How far is that payphone? Dean asked. 2 blocks north, right outside the drugstore, Jimmy said, confused. Can you walk okay? Yeah, my legs work fine. It's just my luck that's broken. Dean smiled at that. Come on then. He offered his hand to Jimmy, helping him up from the sidewalk. Jimmy's knees cracked as he stood, and he wobbled a bit before finding his balance. They must have looked like the oddest pair, a Hollywood star in his casual sweater and khakis, and a homeless man in his layered rags, walking side by side down Vine Street. People stared. Of course they stared. A few recognized Dean and looked shocked. One woman actually stopped walking and watched them with her mouth open. But Dean didn't seem to notice or care. He just kept walking with Jimmy, matching his slower pace, not rushing him. When they got to the payphone outside the drugstore, Dean opened his wallet. But instead of handing Jimmy money, he pulled out a small address book. What's your daughter's number? Jimmy recited it from memory, and Dean dialed it himself, feeding coins into the phone. Then he held the receiver toward Jimmy. It's ringing. Jimmy's hand shook so badly he almost dropped it. He put the phone to his ear, and you could see every emotion playing across his face. Fear, hope, regret, love. Dean stepped back, giving him privacy but staying close enough to be there. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Jimmy looked like he might pass out, 4 times. Then, someone picked up. Hello. A woman's voice, tinny and distant through the old phone line. Jimmy opened his mouth but no sound came out. He tried again. Sarah. His voice cracked on that single word. Sarah, it's Dad. There was silence on the other end, long heavy silence that seemed to stretch for years. Dean watched Jimmy's face, saw the terror there, saw him about to hang up. Then, through the phone, came the sound of crying. Not angry crying, something else. Dad, is that really you? Her voice was shaking too. Where are you? Are you okay? And Jimmy just lost it. Right there on the street, this tough old man who'd survived years on the streets, who'd faced every kind of hardship you could imagine, just broke down. I'm okay, baby. I'm in LA. It's your birthday and I wanted to... I'm so sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry. I know, Dad, I know. She was crying harder now. I've been looking for you. I hired a private investigator last year, but he couldn't find you. Dad, where have you been? The operator's voice cut in. 1 minute remaining. Dean immediately fed more coins into the phone. Then more. He kept feeding coins until the operator said, "You have an additional 15 minutes. Jimmy looked at Dean with an expression that was pure gratitude mixed with disbelief. But Dean just nodded and mouthed, "Take your time." What happened in those 15 minutes was between a father and daughter. But from watching Jimmy's face, you could read the whole story. There were more tears. There was laughter too, the kind that comes after crying when you realize that maybe, just maybe, things might actually be okay. There were explanations and apologies and questions about grandkids and promises to call again. When the call finally ended and Jimmy hung up, he just stood there staring at the phone like it was a portal to another world. Which in a way it was. She wants me to come home? He said, not to Dean specifically, just to the universe. She's going to wire me money for a bus ticket to Colorado. She said she'll meet me at the station. She said we'll figure everything else out. He turned to Dean with tears streaming down his face. She forgave me. I don't deserve it, but she forgave me. Dean put his hand on Jimmy's shoulder. Everybody deserves a second chance, Jimmy, even the people who think they don't. I can't pay you back, Jimmy said. Not the money you put in that phone. Maybe not ever. I don't want you to pay me back, Dean said simply. But I want you to do something for me. Anything? Name it. When you get to Colorado, when you see your daughter and those grandkids, I want you to be there. Really be there. No excuses, no running away when things get hard. You've been given a gift, Jimmy. Don't waste it. Jimmy nodded so hard it looked like his head might fall off. I won't. I swear I won't. Dean reached into his wallet again and pulled out several bills. Here's money for food until that bus ticket arrives. Get yourself a hot meal. Maybe a motel room for tonight. Somewhere safe with a shower. You're going to meet your grandkids soon. You'll want to clean up. Jimmy tried to refuse, but Dean pressed the money into his hand and closed Jimmy's fingers around it. Take it. Not as charity. Take it as one father to another. Take it because sometimes we all need help, and there's no shame in that. They stood there for another moment, two men from completely different worlds who'd somehow found themselves in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. Then Jimmy did something unexpected. He hugged Dean, just grabbed him and held on like Dean was the only solid thing in a spinning world. Dean hugged him back. Right there on the street, the famous crooner in his casual clothes and the homeless man in his rags, holding each other like brothers. Several people had stopped to watch now, and more than a few had tears in their eyes. When they finally pulled apart, Jimmy said, Why? Why did you do all this? You could have just given me $1.